5 years ago, I moved to South Dakota. I'd never lived completely alone before, and as someone who wasn't very social, the idea of quiet, open land felt like a dream come true. The house I found was perfect, tucked away in one of the snowiest parts of the state, so isolated that I could go weeks without seeing another person. For the first few years, it was exactly what I wanted. I worked, I came home, I kept to myself. Life was peaceful. Then, one afternoon in early February, everything changed. I was at work when the snow started. It didn't seem like a big deal at first, just another winter storm. But within an hour, the wind was howling. Visibility dropped to zero, and the roads turned into an icy nightmare. My boss sent everyone home early, telling us not to risk it. I wasn't too worried. I had a big, lifted truck, and I'd driven in worse. Still, pulling into my driveway, a wave of relief washed over me. I was home. Safe. That feeling vanished the second I tried to unlock my front door. The key wouldn't turn. I jiggled it, pushed, tried again. Nothing. The lock was completely frozen solid. I didn't have a lighter. No way to heat it up. I breathed on it, cupped my hands around it, even slammed my shoulder against the door in pure frustration. The wind was whipping around me, piling snow up past my ankles. Defeated, I got back in my truck, blasting the heater, thinking I could just wait it out. But after 10 minutes, I knew that was a terrible idea. The snow was coming down so hard and fast, my truck was already half buried. Even with the lift, I wasn't sure I could drive out. I was completely alone. No neighbors I knew. My family was hours away. That is when the terrifying reality hit me. My only option was to walk to the nearest house and ask for help. The closest one was about a quarter-mile down the road. It felt like miles. By the time I stumbled onto the porch, I was shaking uncontrollably, my face completely numb from the cold. The house was small and looked like it hadn't been cared for in years. I knocked as hard as my frozen hand would let me. Silence. I was about to give up and turn back into the storm when the door was suddenly flung open with such force that I instinctively took a step back. A man stood there, maybe in his early 50s, with a plain face and a completely flat expression. He just stared at me for a long, uncomfortable moment before introducing himself as Joe. I quickly explained my situation, my frozen lock, the blizzard, everything. He just nodded slowly, then stepped aside to let me in. The moment I stepped inside, the warmth hit me, and for a second, that's all that mattered. Joe offered me a seat on his couch and sat in a worn-out armchair across from me. I tried to make some small talk, to thank him. But something felt incredibly off. His eyes never stayed still. They were constantly darting around the room, to the ceiling, the walls, the floor as, if he couldn't focus, he'd start a sentence and then just stop, staring into space. The whole vibe was just deeply unsettling. Finally, I told him I was exhausted and asked if it would be okay for me to just sleep on the couch for a while. He seemed almost relieved by the suggestion. He got up, turned off the light butt. Then he just stood there, in the dark doorway, silently watching me. It felt like an eternity before he finally turned and walked down the hallway. I tried to sleep. I really did. But my gut was screaming that something was wrong. About an hour later, I started hearing noises, a faint thumping and scraping sound coming from directly above me. But that made no sense. It was a one-story house. There was nothing above me but the roof and the attic. Then, a loud, sudden thud jolted me upright. And that's when I saw him. Joe was standing in the doorway again. I hadn't heard him approach. Before I could even ask what was going on, he charged. He vaulted over the couch and tackled me to the floor, Wistrugladd rolling across the dusty carpet as his hands went from my throat. He was surprisingly strong, his grip like iron. And he was yelling not in anger, but almost like he was pleading. He kept telling me to stop fighting him. He was talking about her. He said she was lonely, that she would like my company. I don't know how I did it, but a surge of pure adrenaline shot through me. I managed to shove him off, scrambled to my feet, grabbed my coat, and just ran. I didn't even take the second to put it on. As I sprinted back out into the blizzard, I heard him screaming behind me, his voice tearing through the wind. He yelled, "She's not going to be happy." I didn't look back. I just kept running until I reached the next house down the road. The family there pulled me inside without a second's hesitation. I was hysterical, half frozen, and completely terrified. I ended up sleeping on their couch that night, too exhausted to even process what had just happened. The next morning, I tried to explain everything. As soon as I started describing the house and the man, the husband stopped me. "Was his name Joe?" he asked, his face serious. When I said yes, he nodded grimly, like he'd heard it all before. He told me that Joe's wife had disappeared years ago. There was no investigation. No body ever found. But everyone in town believed Joe had killed her. I reported the attack to the police, but with no real evidence, nothing ever came of it. I still live in my house. The lock hasn't frozen since, but now, every single time I drive past Joe's place, I get that same cold, crawling feeling under my skin, and I have a horrible feeling that it's never going to go away. Thanks for listening. If you liked this story, make sure to follow for more.